Hello and welcome everybody to the AV Exchange presented by Midwich. I'm your host as always, Joe Dunbar. It's Thursday, April 24th. We're cruising towards InfoComm. It's going to be here before we know it. I'm thrilled today. We pretty much robbed the C-suite over at Bose Professional. So we're going to sit down with that team and I'm going to grill them about a couple of things. Let me get into the agenda and some talking points here, you guys. Thanks for taking the time out to join us. Like I said, we're going to be chatting with some of the executive team from Bose Professional. I'm going to be grilling them about kind of the company story, a little history, a little where were they, where are they going, right? I really want to talk about a bit of product development, because we've got the right crew on for that. Ask some questions about the 2025 and beyond plans. I'm probably going to ask a little bit about some InfoComm sneak peeks as well, because it's right around the corner. It's going to be here before we know it. For those of us that have joined before, I appreciate you guys returning. For anyone that's new, I've got a couple of housekeeping items before we bring the team in here. Please use the Q&A for questions. It helps us keep those organized and make sure that we get to all your questions. If you put them in the chat, no shade, but I may not get to it. It may get lost. So please use the Q&A for questions. In the chat, I always love to know where everybody's kind of joining us from. I am in southern Utah now, and I'm moving a little bit, so the weather is still beautiful. I've been thinking a lot about this conversation, and I'm stoked to dive into it. Use the chat. Let us know where you're coming from. I love to hear about Bose Professional experiences there as well, so use that for that purpose. I'm going to drop the poll, am I? Yeah, polls, quizzes. I'm going to launch a poll real quick. We asked a couple simple questions. One, how familiar are you with Bose Professional? We just want to know. I don't want to speak a lot of high-level language if you guys are very new to the solutions and the company. So that kind of gives us an idea of your experience with them and where you sit in the market. Are you a systems integrator? Are you an end user? We just want to know who we're talking to so that we make sure to speak your language. So I appreciate everybody participating in that to give us an idea of who our audience is. And as we do at the end of the segment, we're going to, or at the end of the episode, we're going to give away a $50 Amazon gift card. I do a wheel, kind of an automatic generated wheel raffle with that. Relevant questions will earn you an extra place, an extra spot on the wheel. So it'll improve your chances to win that gift card. So please, for the sake of the discussion and for the sake of your time, load us up with your questions. Let us know what you want to know, and we'll make sure to bring it into the conversation when it makes sense. And with that, I'm going to switch over and jump and bring in the team here from Bose Professional. We've got a couple of folks in. So we've got John Maier, CEO. We've got Kenn LeGault, who is the VP of Engineering, and Shawn, who is the Director of Product Management. I think I got that right, guys. But I'm going to ask you to go ahead and just introduce yourselves a little bit and let us know who we're talking to. John, if we could start with you.
Yeah, as you said, John Maier, CEO, Bose Professional. Long-standing musician and audio guy. I've been in the business my entire life, and just excited to be here. We can get into more detail about background and all that stuff as we go, but I'll hand it off to these guys, Kenn and Shawn.
Yeah, perfect. Kenn, if you could, please.
Yeah, my name is Kenn LeGault. Also, like John, been in the audio business pretty much my whole career. Engineering software, hardware products for pro audio, content creation, as well as playback and live sound.
Yeah, John, Kenn's got a good rap sheet. I know we were going over that in the pre-call. Shawn, how about you?
I grew up in the professional audio industry, and with a last name like Watts, either I was destined to be in this industry or an electrician. But I heard, you want to be in the rock and roll side. So, yeah, that's where I've been my entire career. Yeah.
It's definitely a lot more fun. I know some Sparkies, and obviously we work with some allied trades, but I feel like we got the better end of that deal. I don't want to start a fight or anything, but I think we won that. Well, guys, I appreciate you all being here, taking time out of your busy day. Like I said, we kind of robbed the C-suite here and got some high-level folks on the call. So I'm going to jump into some conversation. Let me make sure. Yeah, I'm going to end the poll quick. It looks like we're talking to a lot of systems integrators, a few end users, so kind of our regular crowd. I want to jump into kind of some history. I feel like before we start talking about where we are and where we go and everything, right, we need to talk about where we came from. I know Bose Professional launched as a new private company in kind of early or springish of 2023. And now that we've had the chance to set a course, start building out the company, you're a couple years in now. I'd love if one of you guys could jump in and just kind of tell us, who is Bose Professional?
Yeah, no, I'll jump in on that, and you guys can chime in. It's actually a pretty amazing opportunity. Bose decided kind of during COVID and after COVID to kind of change their approach and focus their business. And so they shuttered some things, sold off some things, and Bose Professional was one of the things that they decided to sell off. And what I love about it is Bose Professional has been around for over 50 years. So this is not something they just decided to do, the last 5 years of their existence, but something that Dr. Bose really started almost at the beginning of Bose. And I was exposed to it as a kid and then as a salesman in retail selling Bose 802s, then as an installer. And so to have the opportunity to have a name like that and a history and a legacy like that come up for sale to where you could actually bring that private and essentially focus 100% on that core business was just like, yeah, we got to jump at this. So yeah, we basically I guess it was spring of 23, as you say, brought the thing private. I came on board. I was kind of with the private equity firm for a little bit. I came on board and started to go through and figure out, okay, how do we keep the best of what made Bose Pro what it is, but also take this opportunity to improve things and change things. And what I would say is that Bose at this point was really kind of its own pirate ship within Bose Professional was kind of its own pirate ship within Bose. And it already had its own division of engineering team, product development, product management, marketing, sales. So it wasn't like we had to sort of disentangle from Bose. It was already kind of its own thing. And so we were able to kind of take that and sort of start from there. And the way I always talk about it is it's like we get to have this sort of startup vibe, but we've got this 50-year legacy and history and great products and great relationships, and we're distributed in 134 countries around the world. So we've been able to keep the product focus, the innovation, but also add a much more efficient, more nimble setup, much more focused on the market that we're in. Instead of being 4% of a big consumer business, we're 100% of a focused business on commercial installation and pro audio. So that's been the sort of push is standing up the business because we didn't get finance and IT and HR and all those things. Those things we had to build up from scratch, and then really just sort of supercharging the things that we did get, like the team that I have here, which is Shawn and Kenn around product development and really kind of cranking that whole machine up.
That's I love that you say instead of being 4% of a market in a larger company, you're 100% of it. I think that probably, conveys the attitude you guys have towards it. You're very dedicated to these verticals, this section of the industry. Shawn, I'm going to come to you with the same question. I'll start with you, Kenn. How did you guys come to be at Bose Professional? Were you part of that transition in the new company, or did you join after the new company? And where did you fit in, and what was your experience like?
Yeah, I started about 6 months in, so I wasn't there, right at the very beginning, but shortly after, and so I've been with the team for about a year and a half now. And yeah, it was for me. It was a great way for me to extend my career, in pro audio. I had taken a little detour for a few years working on some other products at Amazon and on some other like robotic self-driving car stuff. But I really missed audio, and so when I saw that Bose Professional was basically in my backyard and they were looking for another engineering leader, it just was perfect timing, and I was in the right place at the right time. And I met with John, and we just really hit it off. I was really excited to hear about where he was taking things. And for me, it's been kind of the best of both worlds. On one hand, as John explained, we've got this legacy, this rich history. We're an established company, great product line, worldwide sales. We're a well-known brand, so we have that great foundation. But yet, we have this opportunity to really transform and be a nimble, more startup mentality type company. So we have, I think, the best of both worlds. existing products, but also the ability to innovate. I've been able to reshape certain parts of the engineering team and build out in areas where we didn't have as much bench strength, and bring some of my former colleagues from other companies. And so it's been great to leverage that rich history and a lot of the engineering people that have been here for a while, and have that institutional knowledge, but then also build on that. So it's been super exciting.
That's you guys keep touching on it, and Shawn, I don't want to steal your thunder. I hope I don't here, but like what a company to work for, where you get to have this like startup, nimble, agile feel, but have one of like the largest, most recognizable brand names in existence. That's a huge advantage. Shawn, I'd love to hear what your experience is like, kind of when you joined, and same question.
Yeah, it's a dream being here today. I've been with the company for 8 years. So I used to be, when it was Bose Corporation, went through the transition to who we are today. And, to John's point of, now we are 100% focused, on the professional audio world, is really, really exciting. I mean, this gives us so much opportunity that, quite frankly, we couldn't do before, because of that. So this has really opened up a lot of doors, the talent, the kind of star team that we've brought together. You're going to start seeing a lot of the work that's being, done behind the scenes, that's going to be coming to market very soon as we move forward. Just makes me so excited, to be a part of that.
Yeah, I love that. You start talking about behind the scenes, and I got to be careful to stay on track. I will try to get you guys to spill all the secrets and tell us everything. So don't be afraid to push me off if we go a little too hard there. We talked a little bit about the history. Okay, so we kind of are establishing ourselves. What I want to ask about the business opportunity, right? That made sense. John, you talked about how it was a big company sort of operating, and Bose Professional sort of operating on its own within the company. Was that enough to just look at it and say, hey, it would make more sense to spin this off into its own thing? Or what triggered that?
Well, I can't speak for Bose and their decision process, but I can say on the buying side, yeah, it was a couple of things. It's, how often does a top 100 brand in the world spin off part of its brand? That just doesn't happen. And then when you say, well, the firm, the private equity firm, that we're owned by now, has experience both with carve outs, and this was a very complicated carve out, to sort of stand this up on its own, disentangle from Bose's, logistics and supply chain and all that. But also they have experience with audio businesses. They owned Blue Microphones, and that's how I got involved. I ran Blue Microphones for Transom, the private equity firm, and then I got involved and helped them run Loud, where they bought the Loud business that had EAW and Martin Audio. And one of the first things we did was sell off those other brands, because Mackie was really the breadwinner, and so very successful exit there. And it just made sense between this perfect sort of scenario of a complex carve out and an audio business. So that was sort of the first part of it that was appealing. But then the opportunity side that you mentioned is, when you're a very small part of a big business, you tend to float in the wind with their strategies. And this is, again, no dig against Bose. Bose did the right thing. They focused on their core business. But that meant sometimes there would be an investment in Pro for a couple of years, and a direction here. And then a new strategy would come up, and they'd say, no, we don't want to invest there. We want to invest over here. And now Pro doesn't get that investment. Or the Pro is going to be, into the live sound space, or it's going to be into video conferencing. And then a few years later, there'll be a different strategy. So it was just hard for the business to really see its full potential, being that small part of the bigger organization. And so that's where I saw the opportunity is I've had an experience from day one with Bose. My dad bought Bose bookshelf speakers in the 70s. And by the way, he still has them to this day. Then I was selling 802s and 402s in the 80s. Then I bought a pair of, the noise canceling headphones for traveling. So I've been a brand, connoisseur of Bose for years. And so I saw that Bose got to where it was, Bose Professional got to where it was via this sort of core middle market of restaurant, retail, hospitality, branching out to fitness and house of worship and education. But it was being pulled in these other directions like video conferencing and live sound and other things. And it was kind of maybe potentially losing its position in that core space. And so we just thought we can move much faster. We can develop interesting products, more innovation, and get them out much faster if we're focusing 100% on that market. And that's what you're seeing. So in the last year, we've introduced a lot of stuff to fill out that core product line. We just saw some introductions at ISC. We'll see some more at Infocom. And then as Shawn alluded to, we've got a really interesting next generation of things coming over the course of the next couple of years. So.
Yeah, and Shawn, I'm going to be asking you about those things a little bit, and whatever you can tell us. Is being a more agile, nimble operation enough for Bose Professional to really make an impact and stay competitive in the global commercial market? Are you guys, in terms of developing products and new solutions and everything? I know R&D is paramount at Bose Professional, right? Like this is a core tenet of the personality and the brand and the legacy. So what are you guys doing in addition to, I don't want to say in addition to, it's a huge thing to make a move and kind of branch off and be your own company. But now that you've got that speed and that agility, how are you guys utilizing that to stay competitive and make an impact?
Well, I'll start, and then Ken and Shawn, you guys can chime in. I think one of the big things is building off of what we already had, right? So we have this legacy of intellectual property and people and relationships and the products that are already out there. One of the key things we've done is make some decisions around what expertise do we want to have in-house and what expertise are we willing to have others be, the experts at. The example I'll use outside of product development is logistics. I don't care if we become experts at moving boxes around. There are others that do that better. Let's use third parties to do that. And so we've made some really strong decisions. Acoustics obviously has been a 50-year legacy. We still keep acoustics in-house. That's a strength of ours. But the former Bose Professional, before this new independent version, was using a lot of third parties for a lot of things, specifically around the software side of the business. And we've brought a lot of that in-house. And Kenn's really building a world-class team. And the level of innovation and collaboration and therefore speed, because we're in-house rather than using third parties and having to go through the process of getting multiple third parties to talk to each other and talk to us and coordinate all that. We're streamlining a lot of that, and it allows for more innovation and more speed. But again, I'll leave it to the guys to fill in the color there.
Yeah, Ken, Shawn, anything you'd like to add?
Yeah, I'll hop in here on this one. Our heritage has been about innovation, but it's really been wrapped around, solving problems, for everyday, situations. That's kind of been at the heritage, of us. And so it's excellent to be a part of a startup, but to have this 50 years of where we've really been focusing, on reshaping what professional audio systems should be, and being able to set a new standard in portable audio. There's just many instances of that we've been able to do, through our heritage. One of the biggest changes that we're doing is being a part of a larger organization. It made it hard to be really focused on the customer. And so this is something that's really transforming, in what our approach is today. I would say, in the past, we might be more inside out focused. Today, we definitely are looking at more and more what are the problems that system integrators are dealing with every day, and then what are the solutions that we can provide to them. And yes, that can be hardware, it can be software, but it can be a lot of other things, during their journey. Is there inventory? Is there logistics? Can you help us, through our process of our journey through the installation? So these are the areas that we're really starting to hone and bring in some amazing talent, into the organization to do that much stronger. And then how do we start to play that out in the hardware, in the software, that we are bringing to market? I think one of the areas, Joe, that's extremely important for system integrators today is there's so much innovation and technology out there. We live today in a physical and a digital world, and how do we balance, those two worlds, becomes more and more difficult. And because there's so much innovation out there, in many ways, there's been innovation for innovation's sake. Is it really solving a problem for system integrators, particularly? And a lot of times there's things that are being developed that really aren't addressing anybody's needs or wants. And so that's really an area that we're focusing on is what is purposeful, things that we can do that really helps them. Because the one constant system integrators cannot change with all this technology and innovation is time. There's only so many hours in the day, for them to be able to do their job. And so what are the things that we can help to do to take away some of that unnecessary burdens? Some of the complexity, the incompatibility, the frustrations that they're dealing with, and being able to help solve those problems, to bring more efficiency to them so that they can focus on the artists that they are. I grew up in this industry. I used to be a system integrator. My thumb, in the beginning of my career, I used to build racks. So splicing cables was my thing. And, my thumb still is worn out from that. And knowing that today, with all of these technologies, all this unification, all of this, having to learn fast how to do these things, they can't be bogged down by all of the things that are incompatible with each other. And so how can we help them throughout their journey? So that's really one of the big dynamic changes that we're doing, in our organization, and bringing in talent that has that real world experience, but also being more outside in focused, like going out. And those that are on this call today, we want to hear from you. We want to know, what are the things that you are dealing with? What is causing problems for you with our products, or just the industry in general, and how us as manufacturers can help make your lives easier. So, that's super critical for us. And we know that's a part of what's been in our DNA. We've had a lot of success there. A lot of times when people ask us, why do you choose Bose Professional? It's not always about the product. It's about the other things that we deliver too. And we just want to keep building upon that.
Kenn, I don't want to make you echo what they're saying if they covered it all, but I'd love to get your input on this if you've got anything to add.
Yeah, I think I can add maybe another dimension to it. I think what's been great is that when I joined, I was able to, initially just take inventory of what we have, both in terms of IP and processes and the skill sets of the team. And there's a lot to work with there. But then I was also, able to look at where we wanted to take the products and try to strike a balance between short term and long term. Like we need to continue to deliver, new features and products incrementally year by year. But sometimes, innovation can't be, scheduled on 3 months, 6 month kind of intervals. So you have to be willing to place some longer term bets and also build new building blocks and technology platforms that will serve you for the next 10 years. We have a lot of very solid products, and with this system approach where individual point products work well on their own, but when you can combine them in like Shawn was referencing, a system level optimization, you can make the basically overall system work better and provide more value to the customer when you can really look at the whole. And so I've been able to build on the existing core IP, and we're placing some longer term bets that are going to pay off in the coming years in terms of new products, new technologies, while we continue to support our existing products. I would say, on the balance side of things, there's also this communication, and back to the startup feel and that agile thing. I think as a big company, I've worked at some pretty big companies, it's easy to end up in silos and where you don't talk enough and things are thrown over the wall, or it's done through a very formal process of document passing back and forth. We're much more, I would say, not only agile, but collaborative. So we get teams together, representatives from different teams, and we kind of let the titles fall to the side, and we just just brainstorm on, what do we need to build? What's missing for our customers? How could we improve? And having a technology team that can not just follow orders that's coming top down from a product development management team, but being able to bring technology ideas that could differentiate and maybe do things that people didn't think were possible. That's where I really, keeps me up at night, and where I want to come in the next day so that I can bring opportunities, technology, ideas to Shawn and his team and say, hey, what if you had this? Imagine what we could do with it. And so that's been really fun, is to just have that level of collaboration and quick turn without it being this big heavyweight formal process that you get sometimes with big companies.
That's the ability to be nimble and agile. It's a theme I'm hearing throughout this whole thing, and it makes perfect sense. We do have some questions rolling in. I want to thank everybody for submitting their questions. Keep them coming. I got them queued up. I am going to dive into them, but you guys each kind of said something that I wanted to break into a little more, that kind of grabbed me a little bit. I think, John, you made the comment, or maybe it was Shawn. I can't remember. Somebody made a comment about how it can be hard to focus on the customer, especially when you're part of a smaller part of a larger organization, but particularly with Bose Professional and the split from Bose Consumer. You guys have different customers. So I have to imagine that really opened it up for you guys and gave you the ability to put some wheels on some solutions, some development and research to get new lines, new products, and improve what you had. Do you guys feel, do you feel that internally? Does everybody feel like there's more momentum and more ability to carry it forward?
Yeah, I hope so. And I think, what we've seen is, as you can imagine, Dr. Bose from MIT, a professor at MIT, the Bose organization is actually part of MIT in a way. And just by the virtue of that, can sometimes feel like an inside out. Obviously Bose has been incredibly successful, and again, that model works for them. But when you're part of that bigger thing, and that bigger thing is sort of like engineering based, innovation based out into the market, Shawn hit the nail on the head. The integrators that are on this call know, we have to be very in tune with the challenges of the market. What's happening out there? What's working? What isn't working? What are the problems that we should be solving for? What are we providing that's working, and what are we not providing, or providing that's not working? And so, yeah, it was a conscious shift to say, we have to have a culture that is really customer first, and it's outside in to think about what the customer is dealing with. And the customer for us is manyfold. It's a consultant, it's the integrators, it's the end user. So we do have to think about a lot of customers, but that's the conversations we have now are really that first, and Shawn has driven that, Kenn, his team has driven that, and we really are talking about that in meetings. We're not talking about, we've got a new widget that does things faster than everybody else. How can we sell it? Who can we sell it to? That doesn't work for this industry. So yeah, it's a big part of what we're trying to do.
That's so you touched on another piece that I made a note on a little bit. Shawn, you had mentioned, basically, I'm paraphrasing here, but innovation for innovation's sake, which you're singing my songs, man. This drives me insane. We live in a world where now so many things technologically are available to us. We can do all these things, but just because we can doesn't mean we should. You guys are taking a hard look at each time you're making and striving for innovation. It sounds like you're asking yourself, okay, we can do this. What's the purpose behind it? What do those conversations look like from a engineering and a product development between, you and Kenn and your departments? What do those conversations look like? And how do you guys determine, this is just a nice bell or whistle that makes it look better, but this core functionality that we've increased is really what we want to go after and where we're going to see improvements? How do you guys balance that?
Yeah, where we've really balanced it, Joe, is, in our approach. So, for us, we have stood up, customer councils. We're really doing a lot of research, out in the field, talking to people. And where it really begins is a mistake so many times product development does, is that they're not truly listening. They're not listening to their customers. And so we've seen just so many technologies out there. And I think all of us can give an example of that, where it was absolutely excellent tech, and it just never caught on the market. And everybody looked at it and said, oh, interesting, but did anybody really want it or need it? And so one of our biggest changes, that we are doing is doing a lot more outreach. between Kenn's team and our team, we work so cohesively together, and then being able to reach out to the communities, to our system integrators particularly and consultants, getting their feedback, taking these concepts to them and saying, what do you guys think of this? Does this actually solve the problem that you're looking for? And so I think it's a lot of that synergy, that we've been doing, for us, and you brought it up, Joe. It's a great point. We were a part of a much larger organization, and our business was very different than Bose Corporation. And so that made it sometimes hard when we would talk about customer centricity. What did that actually mean? And so for us today, the people that we've brought into this organization, we really focus on that integration partner. What are the things that they're doing? And within a system integration firm, there's a lot of different people, audiences. They have very different needs. So somebody that's designing a system is different than the needs of the person actually going out and doing the installation. You typically have your procurement department or your office administration. They have different needs. And so we really are focusing on what are the things that each of them need, because if any of those areas break down, and we're causing friction for them, or we're not solving the problems that they have, we're not able to truly serve them, to the best level that we can. So those are the areas, within our organization, we've made a lot of strides, a lot of changes too. And the proof is the success we're having with some of our most recent launches of product. Yeah.
Yeah. That segues pretty, you have, we were talking about, I mentioned it earlier, Bose Consumer has different customer base than Bose Professional. And so splitting off makes sense. And even within a systems integration partner, there you have many customers within that systems integration firm, to your point. So Kenn, you had mentioned about really taking the chance to look at the whole and not just a part of the puzzle from, from your standpoint, what does that mean? What does it mean to look at the whole for you guys? Are you working on partnerships with other companies to provide easy integrations for our system integration partners, or what does that look like?
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely one dimension, but maybe just to think about our product line, at a very high level, right? There's speakers, and often that's where the story or the journey begins, is people know about our speakers, integrators know what they're capable of and what unique features they have, and then they kind of work backwards from there. They know that our amplifiers are tuned to get the most out of the speakers and that you're going to get the best there. And then they can also leverage our very flexible software platform and our processors. But you have to kind of be able to sell products both standalone that work well as a point product, and then figure out, hey, when you mix them together and we can control all those variables, what are the things that we can do to improve performance and provide functionality that where we might otherwise not be able to enable it, because they're connected and they have to know about each other. So like one example might be the tunings that we have and the support in the amplifiers to really protect the speakers and push the performance on them. We do a lot of really careful testing and evaluation, both for making sure that they hit the performance targets, but that they have really good reliability. I've been amazed since I've been here to look at just our return rates and how low they are. I've been at other companies where quality can be a huge problem. It's not to say we haven't had blips over the years and hotspots like any company, but generally our products are really stable, and that's not by chance, and that's not an accident. That comes from really careful consideration about the design and the testing, and just making sure that we have really good feedback from our beta sites and our early adopters. But I think, back to the point about not just doing innovation for innovation's sake or being too focused on the shiny next thing. There are real innovations in the world that pro audio for many years has been not really participating in, and it's been kind of blind to. And I would say, the cloud and AI and innovations around software and systems is really an area where I think we're just starting to scratch the surface on that. And, in the last year, we released our Control Space Cloud product, which again, kind of makes things more connected, allows you to do more remotely, to monitor the health of systems, to know what's going on in the world, because you can't just deploy a system and then cross your fingers and hope it's going to work. So I think building more on that kind of connectivity between the different elements, the different software and hardware pieces in the system, and then being able to connect those in a world that's continuing to be more connected, more cloud-based, more software-based. We have to really, I think, put equal weight on the software. And I think a lot of companies in our industry have been really hardware companies first, and then software is a little bit of an afterthought, and you try to glue it in there and figure it out. And I think you can see that in some of the products and just how they don't look as modern and have the functionality that you might expect in a lot of just basic consumer applications. So we're really trying to find out where the pain points are, where the opportunities are, and figure out how we can continue to do what we've always done really well with the core functionality on the acoustic side, but bring more software differentiation in there and figure out how to reduce those pain points and, like Shawn said earlier, speed up the design and development process. So we introduced Accelerator last year as an example. That's a front end for control space that just for certain applications simplifies that initial stage of system design. So we're going to double down on that kind of innovation, and in the coming years we're going to have a lot more focus on making software as important as the hardware parts of our products.
I love to hear that. I think we've all been there where it's like, oh, great hardware solution, and we go to use the software to deploy, configure, manage, whatever. And not that it's clunky per se, but it feels like the afterthought. The product was the design, and this was kind of made to fit that, where instead of them being designed together. And we're at an exciting point, in our industry where I think those things are, more companies are starting to consider them together. So I appreciate the perspective. I have more questions, but guys, I got to stop us. We have some questions rolling in from the audience. I promised I would queue them up. Kenn, I want to ask a specific question from Pat. Pat, we were talking about software, and Pat wants to know, is the business music system designer tool still available? Or is that gone? And if so, is something going to replace it?
I'm going to defer to Shawn on that one because that's a product roadmap question. So I'll let him take that one.
By all means.
Yes, so we are in the process. Our business music system designer was an online tool that would quickly allow you to design your loudspeaker system for a small to medium sized space. Mm-hmm. And so yes, we are in the process of upgrading that platform. Unfortunately, the platform that was built upon was lost, the data to that, so that's why it's offline. But yes, behind the scenes, we are making a more robust tool as a part of some of these new design tools and what we kind of are phrasing as journey tools. We know there's some other things that integrators have been asking us for to make their lives easier that goes beyond just loudspeaker design. And so it's a part of that package that very soon we'll be able to start showing some early previews of that.
I can't wait.
Great question. It was a great question.
Yeah, fantastic question from Pat. And Pat did elaborate on it. They really appreciate how effective those tools are and how they can help them so quickly and easily in the field. So I'm glad to hear that there's an improved replacement up on the horizon. Steve had asked, one of the things Bose Professional has been known for is a unique approach to driver development. Steve specifically cited the 802 and the 402 and some of the original designs. And wants to know, is custom driver development still a core part of the R&D efforts, or is that kind of rolled more into the normal business? If anybody wants to field that one.
Yeah, I can take that one to start, and feel free to chime in, Shawn. Yeah, I mean, obviously getting really, cost-effective and powerful and reliable transducers and drivers in our products is a fundamental, thing that we have to stay focused on. I think every company, depending on the product, if it's a lower end, more commodity product, you're focused on cost efficiency and making sure that you can hit the cost targets for the customers. We definitely don't want to reinvent the wheel. If there's an existing driver from one of our partners that we can leverage for some of those products, we definitely do that. But most of the time, we're talking about custom drivers. And again, we don't do the actual driver development in-house, but we partner very closely on the requirements, on the early testing and iteration and prototyping. And one of the areas that we're really excited about is leveraging software tools for design in ways that we hadn't done as much in the past. A lot of it used to be some high level modeling, kind of lump parameter, kind of get you in the ballpark kind of design, and then it was a lot of trial and error building prototypes. And you still have to do that actual building and testing of the protos, but we're doing a lot more in the digital domain. And so there's this idea of digital twins where you can do a lot of modeling in 3D CAD programs and acoustic programs that allow us to, before we actually build any hardware, narrow down the options, try to constrain the choices, and figure out how far we can push certain aspects. There's so many parameters in driver development that it can be overwhelming. So it's great to have powerful software tools, and that's another example of just trying to be more forward looking and leveraging the constantly improving software tools that are out there. So we definitely are going to continue to do custom driver development, and we have strong partnerships with most of the leading driver developers out there.
Awesome. I've got a couple more questions lined up. We're going to stay in these, folks. We've got about 10-ish or so minutes left. So make sure we wrap up on time. So I appreciate them. Keep them coming. I might not. Let me see here on the next question. Yes. Pat was asking about the facilities and the experience centers. John, where? Let's start with where are you? Where are you right now? Because it looks like an awesome place.
Yeah. So it's a great question, especially because it looks like a fake background. But it's not. I'm actually in our new headquarters. We just opened, I think in January. So we were still on the Bose campus for the better part of 2 years. So we're now in Hopkinton, and we're just outside of Boston. We'll have more of a grand opening affair here at the end of May. But yeah, this is our experience center. And this is kind of another example of, we got a few questions in the beginning, like, oh, you're going to leave Bose, you're going to lose a lot of, the resources and stuff. And the reality is we can do things better than we were able to do there because it was not a focus, right? So this experience center is bigger and more purpose built than what we actually had on the Bose campus. And so, now we have one facility. We have our engineering labs, the experience center, our offices, a training room that has the technology in it so that we can do hybrid trainings, but both online and in person. So yeah, it's definitely a big deal, and we're excited to share the news. In fact, we have a couple of events, like I said, coming up in May. We've also taken the opportunity, as around the world, we're direct in a handful of countries, and then we're distribution in a handful of countries. And so as we moved out of the Bose facilities, we strategically picked the areas where we want to have experience centers. And we've actually opened up over 10 locations around the world, Singapore, Tokyo, 2 different locations in China, Paris, London, et cetera. So we have, and they're all varying sizes. We have our headquarters for Europe is in Amsterdam, and that has a larger experience center, not quite as big as this, but it's, and then the other ones are smaller spaces, but all the products are installed, plugged in, ready to be demonstrated. We do trainings all the time in each of these locations. So yeah, it's definitely, we're investing in the future. We're pushing the envelope, and we're making sure that our customers, especially our integrators, have an opportunity to touch and feel and get trained, but also bring their customers in. So we just did an event in London where we did the grand opening, and the next day we brought our customers in, and several of the customers brought their end users that they were working on specific projects with, so they could actually touch and feel the product, listen to it, demonstrate it. So yeah, it's a big part of what we're doing, and we're excited to get this headquarters up and running.
It does look like a fake background, and in our pre-call, everybody, John had to show us. We were not convinced that it was not a fake background, so we made him run around a little bit.
Do a drum solo.
Yeah,
we did a good job. It's actually not very. We spent some money on the acoustic treatment in here, so
I imagine. Part of Pat's question, and you Man, you segued to it so perfectly. So does that experience center replace the one that you had in Framingham, or are they both existing at the same time?
Yes, it replaces the one. The one in Framingham was a dual use. It was on the Bose campus, separate building, and the automotive group used it. Some of the engineering groups used it, so it was
Got
kind
it.
of a shared space. This is 100% ours and new, and again purpose built. We actually have a ceiling that can be raised and lowered, so we can demo all the ceiling products at different heights, and it just makes it easier to bring it down and adjust and put in new products and bring them up. And so there's just a bunch of those kinds of things, which just makes it much easier for us to demonstrate the product.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, it looks like a beautiful space. I cannot wait to visit. Specifically, we got to know there was that subwoofer testing room in the Framingham spot, right? Is that do you still have a similar room for that? Pat said he was a big fan, so
No, not yet, but we certainly do. We have a bunch of different testing setups, including a clipple machine, so that we can kind of mimic, the different situations that speakers are going to be in. But we do use this space, and in fact, you guys can't see it, but there's a big curtain here on the back of this training center or this experience center. And when it's not being used for those kinds of events, the acoustics team owns the space. And I'm looking at a new product that you're not going to hear about right away, but and they're doing testing right here in this facility with this product. So we do a certain amount of testing here, and we certainly do high SPL stuff here. But we also use our partners and some of their facilities for some of that stuff too.
makes sense. Makes sense. Pat, out of TriTech, shout out for joining us. I appreciate the questions. Maybe I'll have to get together with you and we'll go out and see the new space together, man. I can't
There you
wait to
go.
get my hands in there. We've got a couple more questions. I wanted to talk about product development. We've got about 5 more minutes here and then we'll wrap up and do the raffle. Lex, hitting I feel like I could have asked this question because this is a product that I'm looking for, but Lex wants to know any plans for a Dante PoE networked AES 67 type solution on the roadmap, or should we just hold our horses and not get too excited about that yet?
There is PoE in our roadmap that we're going to be working on that will have digital audio streaming. We're still debating on what the audio streaming will be. But yes, there will be a networked audio, PoE, solutions, in our portfolio as we move forward.
Awesome. I am such a big fan of, as more things go to the network, it may not be the best for the highest performance audio, but looking at what is the right thing for the space, certainly an enterprise and unified communications network enabling devices is a huge help and solves problems. So I love to hear that it's on the roadmap, which kind of leads me into what will be my final question for you guys. And Shawn, Kenn, John, I don't know who wants to field this. We talked a little bit about the legacy and R&D and how important that is, and that leads me to looking at the roadmap, like. How do you see Bose Professional really manifesting, new solutions and new technologies and the innovations? Do these all come from your conversations with your customers and systems integrators? Is it all in-house? Is it a mix of these things? What does that look like?
Yeah, I'll let Shawn answer for the most part, but I would say that it is a mix. I I like to say that ideas can and should come from anywhere. It's Shawn and his team's job to kind of put all that stuff together and say, what's the right thing for us? What are our opportunities? What are the right things for our brand? Because you could do a million things and you could stretch yourself so thin that you don't really provide good solutions for anybody. But the ideas do come from anywhere. Where we have Shawn set up idea councils where we're meeting on a regular basis to pressure test ideas. Again, doesn't matter where the idea comes from, but that council kind of starts to sort of beat it up a little bit and say, does this really have weight? Can it really work? And as far as the innovation and where we're going to actually focus and put our attention, that is definitely going to be market based, customer based. It's going to be about what's happening out in the world and how do we want to solve those issues. But the innovation, how we solve those issues, that also can come from inside. It can come from outside. It can come, as Kenn said, from other industries that the pro audio industry hasn't really paid much attention to. So,
Yeah, absolutely. Shawn, anything to add?
No, John covered that fairly well. The
Stole your thunder. Sorry.
No, it really is, focusing on that. So we have a product, probably the one that John was alluding towards that we're doing testing, actually came from an idea from a customer. We were out in the field and they said, "Hey, have you guys thought about this?" And wow, that is an excellent idea. And so, yes, we always foster, if you're out there, you're dealing with problems, you have an idea or our current products. What are things that we can improve upon? We absolutely listen to those and make continuous changes, to really help, the integrator, with their life. Um, there's a couple products, recently that we've come to market with, and we're going to be showing, some things at Infocom. There were some previews that we did over at ISE in Europe, and then we're going to be launching them here at Infocom. That's coming right around the corner. One of those products is a new smart mixer amplifier, solution. If people didn't know, our heritage with our free space line, we have sold millions of surface ceiling pendant loudspeakers, throughout its heritage. And so we've just come out with a new next generation solution for, for small to medium size, applications. But one of the unique things that we also did, Joe, in the audience out there, is one of the biggest problems that integrators deal with is you finish your install, you walk the customer through how to use the device, and then you leave. And then all of a sudden that customer, maybe it's a hotel operator, and all of a sudden he's not there anymore. And now there's a new hotel operator. Well, how do I even turn this thing on? So what we did is we realized, wait a minute, why don't we create a QR code on the front screen of the device? And if you hit the QR code, it's going to walk you through a step-by-step, one for the integrator to make it super easy for them to set the system up, but also to allow the operator to be able to do things like, how do I connect to the Bluetooth without having to make the phone call to the integrator? I've got a problem with my system. Do you know where the power button is? No, I don't. It's on the front, and a QR code that can walk them through that process. So one of the things that we're also working on in kind of this innovation lane that we're doing is how can we also make some of these products more easier to deploy, for the installer, and then taking away all of the pain of those service calls that they would get and how to operate the system. So that's an area that we're putting a lot of emphasis on. And some of our recent products we've come out with, we've been doing this. One of those is also a new product that's a steerable line array. Those things can be complex in their installation, but we've now made a step-by-step instructional website that walks you through methodically how to do that installation. So again, it's just saving time for the installer when he's going to go out into the field and deploy it. So those are some of the things that really excites us.
Yeah, and you guys talked earlier about solving problems for your customers, and the supply chain is long and it's not linear necessarily, and so you're helping your customers by solving their customers' problems, right? So
Exactly.
I love to hear that kind of focus. I know that'll win over well. There's a couple questions we didn't get to. I'm sorry, folks, we are running light on time here. Shawn, Kenn, John, I just want to thank you guys for joining us, giving us some insight into Bose Professional, the company, the story. I will certainly be visiting the booth at Infocom and looking forward to seeing some of these new devices and getting a peek under the hood. And yeah, I just want to thank you guys for being here. Any last words from any of you? And that's not an obligation to offer anything. Can the people find you? Where do they find Bose Professional on socials? Anything you want to add before we part ways here?
I would just say boseprofessional.com. That's another thing that we did. Shawn worked hard on is a completely new website. The old website had to be part of Bose's infrastructure, and it just didn't work for us. So we have a completely new website, completely new way to get data for consultants and integrators. But it's boseprofessional.com, and then social media is the same. But no, just thank you guys, and thanks for your support, and thanks for doing these kinds of things to get the word out. We really appreciate it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Thanks, Joe.
I have used that website myself quite a bit, and as somebody in a design and engineering role, it's exactly what we are looking for. I know systems integrators love it when they get used to it and dive in there. So,
Yeah.
thanks so much, Shawn, Kenn, John. We're gonna part ways with you guys. We do have to do the giveaway real quick, and Brandon, we're gonna make an audio sound effect for this so we can get the drum roll. But let me hit the old random wheel generator here, and the gift card goes to Lex Evans, who hit my question. I love PoE devices, so great question there. And thanks for joining us. Appreciate everybody for giving us your time today. You'll be able to find the recording if you want to reference this at any point on our YouTube link, as always. Like, subscribe, comment, do all the things, and make sure you check out our website and join us next time on the AV Exchange.